Good morning. Happy Friday. There's a lot to cover today, so I hope you'll forgive me if I kind of rush through a few things. Let's start off with Timothy Harper, aka News Now OKC. I've been asked a lot to cover the lawsuit. I don't know why I just started off with Timothy and immediately switched to Patrick. I guess they're just indelibly interlinked in my head. So technically, I guess I'm starting off with News Now Patrick and Earl Warden, News Now Houston. I've been asked a lot to cover the lawsuit, their lawsuit. They are defendants, named defendants in a defamation suit by the officer that News Now patty cakes caught in huge air quotes sleeping in his vehicle. There really isn't much to say, and I'm sorry that there isn't really much to say. All we have so far is the complaint. That's just the allegations. What we're really going to end up waiting for is to see how the defendants, because it's Patrick, it's Earl, and it's a couple Oklahoma media groups that are named defendants. So we're going to have to wait to see how they decide to defend themselves and what their answer is, because they should file an answer unless Oklahoma has completely different laws than California. And it's usually only once you have the complaint and the answer that you can start kind of seeing things. Are they going to immediately file a motion to dismiss? Are they going to allege that there were no damages, and so there's no way that this suit can continue because there are no damages, or whatever? I don't know. But it is premature to really discuss it, because if you only have the complaint, then it looks very sunny for the plaintiff. But as soon as you get that answer, then you can make a more balanced judgment between them. I think one of the big issues of this is going to be damages, not just in proving them, because you do have to prove damages. If you want to collect monetary damages, you got to prove them. And that's hard to do in a defamation case. The officer still has his job. But there is the negative media coverage out there. And can that be actually, does it specify him by name, etc.? But he's going to have to prove damages. That's going to be tough. So, continuing with the Oklahoma news, I think that's what I meant to say. Tim Harper was repudiated by OK2A. He's just sheltered himself, basked in their name, and taken credit for, it's a skunk. Let the skunk cross the street. He's taking credit for their accomplishments. And okay, we're good? All right. And he's basically dragged their name through the mud for the last 6 or so months. I thought that OK2A was represented by Tim. I'm sure that other people did too. And that's why they're trying so hard to repudiate him, to denounce him, to distinguish themselves from him, to just in generally make it clear that they are not now, nor have they ever been, represented by Timothy Harper, News Now OKC. And I'm sure it goes to the fact that News Now OKC is out there causing panic and alarm. And he doesn't understand that causing panic and alarm doesn't stop people from being panicked and alarmed. If, a few people at a time see and report some fucking crazy ass weirdo with a firearm. When I was hunting in Montana, there were a bunch of guys. I mean, there was everybody that first week of hunting season. Everybody was rolling around with firearms. Everybody had a firearm. But they were all hunters. and there was absolutely no panic, absolutely no alarm. Everybody knew exactly why they were carrying. I mean, it's not a big deal. But you see Timmy rolling into a movie theater or out of a movie theater carrying a firearm, people are going to start to wonder. There was some guy who dressed up like the Joker or something who went and shot up a movie theater somewhere in the Midwest at some point in time. I don't know. But anyway, people remember shit like that, and so it causes them panic, causes them concern. And then it doesn't get favorable coverage on the news media, etc. So I can completely understand why they would denounce him. And they have made it very clear that he has never represented them. He is not a member, and he never will be a member. So good job, Timmy, making friends, influencing people. I'm wondering how you're going to spin it. It's going to be really hard for you to say that they are anti-Second Amendment. And just for your edification, they probably are pretty pro-Second Amendment. They're probably just anti your method. Just like I'm pretty pro-First Amendment, I'm just anti the method of the fucking idiots rolling around doing these audits. I guess we're going to save the best for last, so I'm going to jump into my favorite sovereign citizen, too dumb for lawyer. He has now changed his argument that he was really talking about custodial detentions. Now, I have no idea what a custodial detention is. I think he just thinks the word custodial means you're under the control of somebody, and he's just flailing. This is 4 videos later, 4 videos of me explaining why it can't be a custodial arrest. So if you think that he actually intended custodial detention the entire time, you're about as stupid as he is. He intended custodial arrest. He meant custodial arrest. He argued custodial arrest again and again and again. He said custodial arrest in terms of being detained on the street and stopped in the car. I mean, it was very clear that he intended custodial arrest. So I'm not really going to entertain his latest argument, because it's not really an argument. He points as proof of his custodial detainment the Kansas statute on how arrest is effectuated. And that how arrest is effectuated in Kansas is just the common law version of how arrest is effective. It's been codified into a statute. That's it. So it doesn't deal with custodial detainments. He has no argument for custodial detainment. There is no such thing as custodial detainment in Kansas or in any other state that I'm aware of, and it's certainly not a thing in the federal system. The Supreme Court has never once talked about a custodial detainment. Dumb. Anyway, so the very last thing that we're going to talk about is James Freeman, and it's just a thumbnail. Private public property. This is classic SovCit bullshit. There is no ownership interest by the public in a police building or in any government building. They're not publicly owned. They're owned by the various departments and agencies of the state government. The state government is a separate entity from the people. Now, representatives from the people are elected to serve in various positions in the state government, but there are the administrative portions of that government that own things in order to accomplish their goals. Now, they do serve for the public benefit, but they are not public. If you think a police station is owned by the public, then you have to wonder why it's called a police station, or why it's called the City of X police station. You have to wonder why the police can keep the public out of certain areas. You have to wonder why the police can lock the building up and deny the public access to it, which they probably do at night, generally speaking. Ownership implies various rights. If you own something, you can transfer it via sale or gift or bequest. You can, as part of your will, you can leave it to someone when you die. You can encumber it. You can get a loan against it, etc. There are various things that you can do with things you own. If you own it, you have various rights. And the public can't sell a police department. The state can. The state can close a police department. The state can bulldoze a police department. But the public can't. Now, theoretically, the public could, if they passed a referendum and used various state laws, they could possibly affect something like that. But it is owned by the state. And even if you could successfully make the argument that it is not owned by the state, but it is in fact owned by the public, then you have other various issues. Number one, are you a member of the public? And you think, well, yeah, I'm a citizen. Okay. But if you move out of that state, are you still a citizen of that state? Can you transfer your ownership interest? You can't. You don't have an ownership interest. If the public owns that, it does it as a group and not as individuals. There is no individual ownership interest, but it doesn't. And finally, there is a distinction between an ownership interest and a right of possession. They are two separate things at law. An owner of property can transfer the possession of that property to another individual. Usually that's accomplished via a lease or a rental agreement. But that's where the owner transfers possession, the right to be on that property, the right to enter that property, to another person. And that person who has that right of possession has a greater right of possession as long as he's complying with the terms of the lease or the rental, whatever. A greater right of possession than the owner. The tenant can actually trespass the owner at common law. I mean, your state may vary and it depends on the terms of the lease, etc. So even if the public owns that property, the police can still trespass the public from it because the police have the right of possession of that property. But it's a very stupid argument. If you look at the lease to the property, it's probably going to say the city of X or whatever. I haven't actually watched the video. I don't really care. It's just Freeman propaganda. But yeah, that is a misnomer, and it's based on Freeman's misunderstanding of the law and of civics. The public doesn't own government buildings. The government owns the buildings. The public doesn't own the government. The government operates for the public's benefit, or at least it's intended to operate for the public's benefit, but the public doesn't own the government. Anyway, I know I'm splitting hairs, but they try to split hairs to pretend that the government buildings are owned by the public, and so therefore the public should have the right to free access to them, etc. Blah, blah, blah. It's all nonsense. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.